Morning, everyone. So it looks like it's 10 o'clock and we have quite a few people joining us right now. Um, so I'll go ahead and get started right now. Okay, good morning. My name and welcome to the Boating Safety and Enforcement Equipment Grant Applicant Workshop. My name is Johanna Naughton and I'm the Program Administrator for the Boating Safety and Enforcement Equipment Grant Program. In the Division of Boating and Waterways, or DBW, within the Grants and Loans Unit. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. Just so you know, participants are all going to be muted during the presentation. So if you have any questions, please type your questions into the chat and we can go over them at the end of this presentation. This presentation is being recorded, so it will be available on our website at a later date. We're hoping to have it up within a week or so, okay? Okay, so the DBW receives funding for the Boating Safety and Enforcement Equipment Grant. I may also refer to this later as the BSEE program. We get funding through the U.S. Coast Guard, the Recreational Boating Safety Grant. It's also called the RBS grant program. The purpose of this BSE grant program is to provide grants to local government agencies that provide boating safety and law enforcement services that demonstrate a need for assistance to purchase related equipment. The funding can be used to purchase things like patrol boats, water or marine patrol equipment, rescue watercraft, search and rescue equipment, patrol boat engines. With those, we do both new or repowered engines. Okay, so today we will be discussing how to apply for a grant. That's done in Olga. You'll get to hear more about that later. We'll do an overview of the grant application and its scoring and scoring matrix. We'll give you some recommendations for writing a competitive grant, and we'll talk about the requirements of the grant because we do have some requirements. We'll talk about how to request a reimbursement. This is a reimbursement type grant, so you make the purchase and we will reimburse you. We'll talk about working with DGS and their OFAM inspectors. And we'll also talk a little bit about what's new this year. We've made a few changes from last year. Okay, the BSEE grant application, it must be submitted through the DBW's online grant application system. This is often referred to as Olga. That's what we'll usually refer to it as, Olga. You can access Olga by going directly to the Boating Safety and Enforcement Equipment Grant webpage, or from the DBW Grants and Loans home webpage, which can be found at dbw.ca.gov. Once you're on the page, there will be a green box on the right-hand side that includes a link to Olga. And there's also a 45-minute Olga instructional webinar that I definitely recommend everyone to watch at least once. Once you're signed into Olga, remember that you're applying for the BSEE or BSE-22 grant. That's this year's grant, is the BSE-22 grant program. Okay, so the next several slides will provide you with an overview of the grant application. The application is open now, so go ahead and get started as soon as you can. And it's going to close at Friday, April 29th at 5 p.m. Just so you know, I am usually working until 3 o'clock. So if you are having problems at 4 or 5 o'clock on Friday the 29th, I won't be here to help you. So I definitely recommend everybody to get started early on this because Olga can sometimes be a challenge for some people. This grant is very competitive. In the last funding cycle, we had $2.55 million in requests and only $1.56 million available. This year, we're going to have $1.5 million available. We're also going to be covering the scoring, minimum qualifications, writing a competitive grant application, and allowable costs. The application assigns each question one of three objectives. These three objectives are need, cost effectiveness, and marine patrol and boating safety activity. The need questions count for the most point totals. That's 50% of the total points, so that's need. The cost effectiveness questions account for 25% of the totals, and marine patrol and safety equipment questions account for 25% of the total points. If you want to see exactly how each question is scored, we now have the scoring rubric posted in the show documents section in Olga within the application. It's also on the BSE webpage. The document is called Review and Scoring Criteria, or it may also be called the scoring rubric. The boating safety and enforcement equipment application will be scored by a team of independent reviewers to promote the credibility of the review process. So I will not be scoring your application. It will be a team of 3 to 4 other people within our agency, usually, that will be doing that. The application has a minimum qualifications tab that will require you to answer a few questions and upload required documents. The minimum qualifications include a letter of intent. We have a template for this letter in the show documents section. You can use that, or you can come up with your own. We also require proof that you're registered within the federal system of award management, also known as SAM. Most of you probably are, but we're going to need to see proof of that. And if you want to see a sample of what we want to see, it's in the show documents section. There's also questions about your boating safety program. We'll also ask for certification that you will report all boating accidents that you will respond to within your area of responsibility for the term of your grant if you receive an award. A new question that was added this year is that if you are in good standing and up to date with all grants, state parks grant programs. If you are not in compliance, then we ask you to explain why you are not. The application asks for information about your waterways to give the reviewers a better idea of what kind of boating activity is happening in your environment. And here we will ask you to identify all of your water bodies in your area of responsibility and provide other information such as the number of citations issued. BSEE funding can be used to purchase patrol boats, patrol equipment, rescue watercraft, search and rescue equipment, engine repowers, etc. And you can find additional information on specific information is available on the Boating Safety and Enforcement Equipment webpage. Requests for equipment that is specific to a single person, something that will only be used for Bob, is not an allowable expense. So remember that when you're making your requests. The application has separate sections for the patrol boat and miscellaneous equipment sections. If you're only asking for a patrol boat, you don't need to answer the miscellaneous equipment questions and vice versa. The application will allow you to request both. The patrol boat section is questions 10A through 10N, and the miscellaneous equipment sections are questions 11A through 11L. If you're requesting a patrol boat, you will be required to upload your specifications for the boat. When developing your specifications, you must follow the specific specification guidelines developed by California Department of General Services, also known as DGS. A copy of the guidelines is in the show documents section of Olga. Okay, and right here you can see kind of highlighted in yellow. That's the screenshot of the show document section. Again, you have to be within your application to see this, but you just up in the upper right-hand corner, you click on the show document section, and all of the documents that I'm talking about today will be in there. And you can, that includes like the scoring matrix and the letter of intent. From here, you can just click and download each of them if you'd like. Okay, the RBS grant funding comes from the Federal Sports Fish Restoration Boating Trust Fund. It's to enhance and support recreational boating safety efforts. Keep this in mind when you're writing your grant application. It's there to support recreational boating safety efforts. So question 7 is commonly misunderstood. On question number 7, we ask you to clearly identify the top 3 boating safety issues as related to your request. There will be questions. This question we'll come back to later. There will be questions how your request relates to these issues later on in your grant application. We are looking for, I'm going to reiterate, we are looking for boating safety issues in your region. These can include unsafe boaters who do not wear life jackets, speed, operator inexperience, BUIs or alcohol-related accidents. So we really don't want you to explain your agency's need for this specific equipment. We want to know is how this is going to help recreational boaters. When applying for this grant, keep in mind we are trying to assess how the limited funding will be used most effectively to promote boating safety. Remember that this is what we are looking for when you're filling out your grant application. We do not have the funds for these Mercedes type models or those unnecessary extravagances. These unnecessary extravagances detract from the ability to meet the needs of our neighboring agencies. So be practical with your requests. Before requesting equipment through this grant, check to see if it's available through a mutual aid asset or a different grant funding opportunity, such as the Federal Port Security Grant. If you're requesting a new vessel, have you determined that a repower of your existing boat is not sufficient? If so, you will need to justify why or why not. Okay, in question 10A for patrol boats and question 11B for miscellaneous equipments, we ask for you to justify your need for a piece of equipment. Question 10A and question 11B, we ask you to describe how the vessel and/or equipment you are requesting will help mitigate the safety issues that you described in question number. You need to justify the need for what you are requesting. Both questions refer back to your responses in question 7. So remember that when you're filling out this application. Okay, I want to provide you with a couple of tips on providing a well-written justification. Here's an example of a poorly written justification of need. Our office is requesting $90,000 from the Boating Safety and Enforcement Equipment Grant Program to replace our outdated and non-operational equipment utilized by our Marine Patrol Unit to provide patrol, search and rescue, and community outreach services on the waterways within our county. Our request also includes new items which will add to the capabilities of our unit, improve safety, and streamline operations. Attached is our application, which describes our activities and includes a detailed list of the requested equipment. Okay, so this is pretty vague and it needs more detail. There's no direct link indicating how this equipment will improve the boating safety issues identified as being significant in your area of responsibility. It really doesn't say anything about any issues that you may have mentioned in question number 7. There's no justification that explains how the equipment will enhance boating safety. Explaining the importance of the work that you do is important to describe, but not in this section. If you don't answer this question appropriately, the application will not score well. Okay, so let's say that in question number 7, this applicant identified that one of their major boating safety issues is alcohol-related boating accidents. Here would be a good example, a good example of a strong justification of need that ties back to that safety issue. Our agency is requesting $90,000 to replace a 1999 patrol boat. This vessel is needed to patrol 2 of our 6 lakes. During the past year, it has spent more time in the repair shop than it has out on the water. This vessel is unreliable, and DGS has surveyed this vessel, indicating the hull is in poor condition and a repower is not an option. Our fleet consists of 3 vessels used to patrol 6 lakes, visited by hundreds of recreational boaters every year. In 2019, there were 20 accidents on these lakes. 6 of these accidents involved alcohol, one of which was a fatality. Our other 2 vessels are less than 10 years old and are in good condition, but maintaining a full fleet of 3 vessels is critical for the enforcement of safe boating and preventing alcohol-related boating accidents on all 6 of our lakes. Okay, so as you can see, it states specifically why the equipment is being requested and how it will affect a specific boating safety issue in your jurisdiction. It refers back to the question number 7 with the alcohol-related boating accidents. It justifies the request by explaining how the boating safety enforcement activity is currently lacking because of the equipment needs to be replaced, and explains how replacing the equipment will improve boating safety. Okay. The BSEE grant is authorized by the Harbors and Navigation Code 663.7. This code states, a boating safety and enforcement program includes, quote, search and rescue operations, recovery of drowned bodies, enforcement of state and local measures for regulation of boating activities, inspection of vessels, and supervision of organized water events. Make sure that your request ties back to the statute too. The application and scoring are designed to align with these criteria, and you will get more points if you are clear about how your request ties to one or more of these activities. Now we'll cover a few key grant requirements that you'll need to follow if you do receive an award. Remember that the agreement is not fully executed until it's signed by both your agency and DBW, and you will receive a notice to proceed letter generated from Olga. Our agreement term is 15 years, meaning you will be responsible for operating and maintaining the equipment according to the grant conditions for this amount of time. That's 15 years. If the equipment continues to be in good working order after the term of the grant, you may continue using the equipment until it has reached the end of its useful life. In this case, you must follow all the terms and conditions of the grant until the equipment is no longer part of your fleet. The department, that's state parks, we will be the legal owner of all registered vessels. This includes patrol boats, rigid inflatable boats or RIBs, personal watercrafts or PWCs, and trailers. The primary purpose of the equipment shall be for boating safety and law enforcement activities, but it may also be used for search and rescue. You, as the grantee, are responsible for the cost of operating and maintaining equipment and keeping it in good repair. You are required to keep records of expenditures pertaining to the equipment along with the operation and maintenance records for the equipment. We don't need to see that, but you are required to maintain that paperwork in case you ever are audited. You are required to notify DBW within 30 days of any loss or damage to your equipment purchased with grant funds. Vessels purchased with grant funds are to be operated only by qualified boating safety and law enforcement officers. Qualified includes full compliance with your agency's training and certification requirements, in addition to having a California boater's card. Procurement of boats must be solicited using the invitation for bid. The IFB must be written using the specifications approved by DBW in your grant application. You're required to get at least 3 bids for equipment that's $10,000 or more per unit. You'll be required to submit an annual report for the term of the grant. A new template for the annual report is being developed right now and will be available later this year. You're maintain all records for the term of your grant, and you're required to report all boating accidents that are responded to in your area of responsibility to the boating safety unit of the state parks for the term of your grant. You can submit your accident reports by filling out a vessel accident report. This is also called the VAR form, and email it to Joanna Andrade or me. These forms can be found on our website, but you may also fill out a report online at boatingandwaterways.com. That's .com. It's not a government agency, so it's boatingandwaterways.com. Okay. DBW provides a reimbursement checklist to assist you with submitting a complete and accurate reimbursement request. The checklist for reimbursements can be downloaded from the show documents section of Olga, which we mentioned earlier. Here is a picture of what it looks like. I definitely recommend you download that, or go to the show documents and download that. This grant is a reimbursement grant. You will not be paid until you submit a complete and accurate reimbursement request to DBW. You will only be reimbursed for items that are approved on your budget page. You will need to submit a cover letter on your official letterhead requesting payment. The cover letter should include all the information outlined on the checklist. So again, you definitely go through and download that checklist when you're making your reimbursement request. When sending in the reimbursement request, please do not include documentation that is not required. This will only delay our review process. You will need to include official vendor invoices and proof of payment. Acceptable proof of payment include payments are like canceled checks, electronic fund transfer, credit card payments, receipts, or invoices with a zero balance. Those are really nice. If you purchased a vessel or trailer that needs to be registered with the DMV, we need to see proof that the state parks is the lien holder on the title and the certificate of origin from the manufacturer or vendor. Again, it's really important that state parks is listed as the lien holder on the DMV document, and the address where is on the reimbursement instructions. So make sure you download that. Because vessels and trailers purchased with the RBS grant funds are state assets, DGS, Office of Fleet Asset Management, it's also called OFAM, their inspectors are required to authorize any repairs or modifications that will be more than $500 if they're being done performed by an approved vendor, or more than $350 if it's performed by an unapproved vendors. You can find the approved vendors. They're listed on the DGS OFAM website. A newer requirement is that prior to contacting DGS inspectors assigned to your region, you must receive prior approval from DBW by emailing me to request a repair, modification, or a survey. DGS inspectors are assigned by region, and you can find your inspectors at dgs.ca.gov/ofam/services. Vessels need to be at least 15 years old or 15 years or older to be considered for surplus. DGS inspectors must survey all vessels prior to being surplused. DGS will survey the vessels and determine if the cost of repair is 75% or more than the current value. If so, they will complete an OFA 6 form and recommend the vessel be sent to the state auction. You will need to provide DBW with the OFA 6, and if approved, we will work with Parks Fleet Management Office to coordinate for you to deliver the vessel to the state auction yard. So you're going to need to deliver that vessel to the state auction yard. Okay, so now we will discuss some changes made from last year's application. Okay, for this year's application, that's BSE 22, you may only request 5 total items. For example, you can request 1 patrol boat and 4 pieces of miscellaneous equipment. We will also request that you group like items. Examples of like items include like patrol boat and trailer. You need one for the other. Dive gear. Like items are related items that work together and are dependent on each other. You must need each of them for any to be functional. So don't try to get creative by trying to group things if they are not standardly dependent on each other. If you group like items in Olga, such as dive gear, you will need to use the notes box to itemize everything included in your grouping. This itemized list should include the description, quantity, and cost of each individual item that is included in the group. So please, okay, this is one thing. Please do not ask for supplies such as they will not be scored or considered. Some examples of supplies are ropes, water bottles, cleaning supplies, hardware such as carabiners, chains, bolts, and nuts. So we will be limiting the maximum amount awarded to 10% of our total budget. Currently, our budget for this program is 1.5 million. So maximum award at 10% would be $150,000. You may request more than this amount, but you will not be awarded more than 10% of the total budget. Okay, so I think that is all for now. Here is my contact information. I just want to remind everyone that I am your contact regarding any questions that you may have for this program or any problems you might have using Olga. We will now address any questions that may be in the chat. If you do not have access to the chat, you can email any questions directly to me. Thank you.
Okay, hi, this is Debbie, also with DBW, and I'm going to read off the questions in the chat, and then between Johanna, Karen, and myself, we will be responding to them. So the first question says, in addition to SAM, do we need to provide the unique identifier number of our agency? And I'm going to just say what we ask you to provide us is a screenshot of the webpage from your SAM registration that says you are current and that your status is current. So if the unique identifier is included on that screenshot, then fine, but it is not something that is specifically required by us. The next question says, can we get a copy of this presentation sent to us? Are we going to be able to send this out? You know, we're recording this and it will be recorded, and the link will be from our website. You're muted, Karen.
Yes, absolutely. The slide deck is totally available.
Okay, so if somebody specifically wants a copy of the slide deck, please just email Johanna, and then she can provide that to you.
Sounds good. Yep.
Okay. The next question says, we are having an issue adding users to the current grant application. Who should we contact for assistance? That is Johanna. Johanna is your Olga technical person. If she can't get it fixed for you, she will work with the Olga administrator to resolve all issues.
Yep.
The next question says, is the 5-item requirement limited to 5 groupings of items? For example, if we need 20 pieces of the same equipment, is that acceptable? The answer is yes. You can have 5 groups. You can request 5 groups. And so if you need 20 pieces of the same thing, that is 1 group, and you will list, the itemized list of that goes in your notes section, which is available in Olga. Next question. Any update or discussion to the requirement to reduce a 15-year reporting requirement for non-boat awards, as many funding items do not have a 15-year lifespan? The answer to that is yes. It is our intention. We need to work out a depreciation schedule that can be included in our grant agreement that would term out items that aren't patrol boats earlier. So we are hoping to have that incorporated into the grant that would be associated with this cycle. Next question, is training to use an equipment an allowable cost for BSE? The answer to that is, it depends, typically no. Karen, do we have any instances where we would fund training?
Yes, good question. So sometimes your ROVs are going to need a training. Sometimes your specific boating equipment might need training. Your underwater, those things that are highly, very expensive, very technical, and you need training to actually operate it effectively. That training is an eligible expense. Just include it when you ask for the equipment.
Okay, next question. It says, I apologize if this was already discussed. If awarded and when filing claim for reimbursement, are we limited to quarterly claims, or we can file once we complete a purchase? You can request reimbursement upon the completion of any purchase. We don't have specifications on that. Typically with BSE grants, what we see is people do all their purchasing in one lump sum and we get one reimbursement request, but that is not required. Okay, this question says, since this grant is funded by the Coast Guard, and it says Homeland Security Do we follow Code of Federal Regulations? And the answer is yes. What the federal regulations that pertain to this grant funding, we are subjected to that, and those will be listed in our grant agreement with you.
But it's not Homeland Security. We're the RBS, the
This is,
Recreational Boating Safety.
yeah. Okay, I think that might be the end of questions. We could give it just another second in case somebody's still typing one, but at that point, we've answered them all. Okay, here's one more. It seems very cumbersome and perhaps unnecessary to request approval for repairs of only 350 or 500. A single part replacement of an engine or annual maintenance exceeds this quickly. So that's not actually, so I'm not seeing a question. What I can say is those $2 amounts are triggering you to not need approval. And so if you did happen to have a repair that was less than that, you don't need approval. And we recognize that usually that does, everything would exceed that. Okay, so then the question he clarified is through DGS. Yes, since these boats are state assets, you know, and this is not in something entirely in our control, all repairs and modifications that go over those $2 amounts do need to have DGS OFAM inspector approval. I don't think working with them is difficult. They're very responsive in our experience. And so it shouldn't make it cumbersome, but you do want that paper trail. You want to let us know you're contacting them by emailing Johanna, and then you do want to contact them and get that paperwork and keep it in your records. Did you have anything else to respond on that, on my response to your question?
Deborah, just a clarification. This is not our requirement. This is DGS's requirement.
Right.
So following their guidance.
Okay, he says he'll reach out directly to discuss. Sure, just contact Johanna. If any of this you want further clarification or your circumstances don't quite fit, you're welcome to contact us and we'll work it out with you. Okay, well, I don't see anything else coming through on the chat. If anybody has a question after we end the webinar, you certainly just can reach out to Johanna. And so I think for now, that might conclude this. Anybody else have one more thing? Oh, we're getting some compliments. It says it was a really great presentation. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, well, I believe did you have anything else, Karen or Johanna?
I don't have anything else, I don't think.
I just want to thank all of you for participating and really engaging in this conversation. Thank you for all the folks who asked questions. You guys do amazing work in the field, and we want to support you as much as we possibly can. A lot of these changes are designed to get the money where it's most needed, and we appreciate your consciousness of that. If you have a need, please apply. Don't let any of these changes or the the application keep you from asking. But I would caution, like Johanna said, make sure it's specific to boating safety, recreational boating safety. We get a lot of requests that are outside of that purview, and we understand that you need those things for your activities, but this money is specific to boating safety. We thank you so much for participating, and we're so grateful for the work that you do and how much effort and passion you have for keeping everyone safe. We are the people that you keep safe. So have a great day, and thank you so much.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody. And just one more reminder, if you do want a copy of the PowerPoint, email Johanna. And then also just know the recording of this webinar should be on our website within a week or so. All right, I'm going to turn this off and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.